Yeah, so this was something that Franklin Templeton has been building, Tony, since 2017. So we really believed very early in the potential of this space. And we've built a stack that is capable of issuing and managing a token. We've built a wallet system within that stack that is KYC AML compliant, so a regulated wallet system.
This episode is brought to you by Uphold, which is a great crypto platform that I've been using since 2018. Uphold makes it easy to buy, sell, trade cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and altcoins. In fact, they have 300 plus cryptocurrencies on their platform, and they carry precious metals such as gold and silver, and you can swap between these assets. So it's really unique. Uphold is safe and reliable. I've never had any issues with them, and they are 100% reserved. You can review their transparency report. They don't commingle or lend out your funds. Now, Uphold recently launched a great product called Uphold Rewards, and it's packed with many benefits. You can earn up to 5.25% on stablecoins, get 24-hour early access to new token listings, and unlock exclusive crypto insights. And they support a variety of stablecoins, such as PYUSD, that's PayPal stablecoin, Circle's USDC, and USBC. They will be supporting Ripple's upcoming launch of RLUSD. So this is a really great rewards program. And if you'd like to learn more, please visit the link in the description. Welcome into the Thinking Crypto podcast. I'm your host, Tony Edward, and my guest today is Sandy Kaul, who's the head of innovation strategies at Franklin Templeton. Sandy, great to have you back on.
Thank you, Tony. It's so good to be here with you.
Sandy, we spoke earlier in the year, and Franklin Templeton continues to develop a lot of great crypto products, a lot of things around ETFs and tokenization. And of course, I have a lot of questions for you about these latest developments. Let's start with a recent report you put out, which was the Future of Investment or Investing 2024/25 edition.
Yep. So we do an annual survey, Tony, where we talk to people engaged in the broad investment industry all over the world. So we talk to asset owners like pensions and sovereign wealth funds and family offices and endowments. We talk to intermediaries like private banks, wealth advisors, industry consultants. We talk to a lot of asset managers, crypto asset managers, traditional asset managers, alternative asset managers. And we talk to a lot of fintech and academics. This year in our survey, we covered our interviewees represented more than 50 trillion assets under management. So it's a pretty comprehensive survey we come out with each year. And in this year's survey, the big story is really about how we are starting to see an acceleration of the adoption of crypto rails into the traditional financial and capital markets ecosystem. And that this is really upgrading the 50-year-old infrastructure that we've been working on. And it really talks about the implications of us moving away from an account-based system where I might have a portfolio, and in essence, it might sound like a portfolio, but I might have 5 or 6 or 7 different funds that sit under that portfolio, and each fund is in its own account, and each fund has its own accounting, right? I'm going to move away from that to a world where I have one wallet, and everything is going to be in my wallet, and everything in that wallet becomes interoperable and leverageable. And that is just going to mark a huge change in how the system works and open up huge opportunities for investing.
So do you think we're at that tipping point of it's kind of what you mentioned earlier? Folks are recognizing this is the future. We need to get on board. It's no longer a fad or a stigma. There's not a stigma around it, but how do we integrate blockchain into our ecosystem, the way we do things, and so forth?
Yeah, I think I think what's really coming about is a few things happening at once, right? I think that, the need to start thinking more seriously about digital currencies, given the success of stablecoins, the need to really start to bring in some of the real innovations that the crypto ecosystem introduced in terms of 24/7 trading, atomic settlement, programmable assets. These are things that are really needed to take huge costs out of the industry. And then I think it's also this idea that we're hitting the right regulatory moment.
Mhm.
We've seen sandboxes launched in Hong Kong, in Dubai, in Singapore, in Europe, in the UK. Now we are hearing that the DTCC in the US is announcing a sandbox. We have this change in administration coming in that's going to be more crypto friendly. So I think it's the combination. It's the combination of more digital money, the improvements and efficiencies and cost savings that we can take in the industry because of the new rails and the right regulatory environment. And I think it's all coming together to create this acceleration that we're going to see in this thinking and in this rebuilding of the financial market infrastructure.
Yeah, to your point, it seems like a perfect storm that took place this year. If you told me maybe back in October of last year, I wouldn't have believed you that any of these things would have happened. That we'd have had the ETFs launch, Franklin Templeton and other firms, pro crypto president, pro crypto Congress coming in, crypto being a ballot issue, maybe not the number one, but certainly a ballot issue. I mean, a complete 180 from how things were last year.
It's incredible. I wrote a paper on Bitcoin back in 2021, and one of the things we talked about in it is that one day we might hit a point where people might consider Bitcoin, part of a strategic reserve, right? And oh my goodness, some people went crazy when we said that. It said never in our lifetime, and here it is 3 years later, right? And so it's kind of crazy when you think about it that way.
Yeah, Sandy, I mean, that must be amazing to be validated in that way. You were ahead of the curve. We have a Bitcoin strategic reserve bill on the table, a president who's ready to push it. You had states, I mean, just this morning it was announced Texas wants to do this,
I know.
Alabama, a bunch of other states. I was actually talking to Dennis Porter, the Satoshi Action Fund. He's been leading this charge. It's amazing what's taking place.
Amazing. Yeah, it's so exciting too, because you don't often get to see innovation in action, Tony. So this is awesome. I love it.
Do you think with the United States taking this position and saying, hey, we want this Bitcoin strategic reserve, it's going to be a bit of game theory where other countries are going to be paying attention. Okay, we need to beat the US to this. Let's get going.
Well, there was already that leak that Russia's thinking about it, right? I would not be surprised to see more and more headlines, right? Like we could even start to see central banks announcing that they're going to hold Bitcoin as part of their reserve. So I don't know. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, 2025, very, very interesting. And your report, very timely. I was reading through it. Really great stuff. I did want to ask you about Franklin Templeton's Benji tokenization platform. I know you guys launch on the Ethereum network, but maybe you start us off by telling us about this platform and what's the mission there.
Yeah, so this was something that Franklin Templeton has been building, Tony, since 2017. So we really believed very early in the potential of this space. And we've built a stack that is capable of issuing and managing a token. We've built a wallet system within that stack that is KYC AML compliant, so a regulated wallet system. We manage the keys in a secure location, a cold storage secure location for all of those wallets. And then we are able to do the transfer agency work so that you can issue regulated funds via this network. So we're able to do the subscriptions and the redemptions to the fund. We're able to track the changes in shareholders. We're able to apply and issue out yield and interest payments and corporate actions all via this on-chain stack that we built. And we're able to issue all of the regulatory reporting that we need. And we're able to exchange within our network any stablecoin or really any digital asset and move it directly into our tokenized money market funds that provide yield. So this is a really comprehensive set of technologies that we built. And now we have the right regulatory permissions. You can transfer peer to peer within the network. And we're really now starting to find lots of demand and ways to deploy this, which is giving us an opportunity to really manage the assets that back a lot of these stable coins or back or looking for the yield potential in our tokenized money market fund product. So it's a very exciting time for us because we've been working for a long time and this system is now fully deployed. And we're really the only asset manager who is actually providing true exposure to our money market fund in a wallet, in your own wallet, you hold that token, right? And this is not something that, there's other tokenized money market funds out there being offered, but they're not registered funds that can be held in your wallet, right? They're more kind of shareholder records.
That's amazing. And I noticed that you're chain agnostic. So you guys started with Stellar, then Polygon, I believe Aptos, Avalanche, Arbitrum, and now Ethereum. Um, so
Base as well.
and which one? I'm sorry.
Base as well.
Oh, Base. That's right. So walk us through a bit of the process. Let's say I'm an institution. I want to leverage your tokenization platform. Can I choose which chains or select a few or on all of them because I want to have interoperability?
So when you're set up in our system, Tony, you have a wallet on every one of those chains. So if you want to transfer your holdings from, the Ethereum chain to, the Stellar chain, you can simply instruct that in our app, and you can move those assets within our secure environment. They're never exposed, to any type of bridge or cross-chain transfer. It's all happening within our system. You're just basically moving it from one of your wallets to another.
So it's permission and you have pretty much full control. It's not open to, general
That's right.
public, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to sound bearish or anything like that, but let's say one of these blockchains fails, because not every blockchain will be a winner. What happens in that case? Are the respective tokenized shares burned?
So we have the record of every share we issue and every owner of that share. And so one of the requirements that we built into the system to satisfy the SEC was that we can reconstruct the exposure. So we would burn those tokens that were on that chain and reissue you that equivalent amount of tokens on another chain of your choice.
Hmm. And are these tokenized shares, are they available globally or is it restricted to certain markets?
It's a great question. So, right now with the FOBXX tokenized US government money market fund, that's a 40 Act fund. So that has only been available to US investors. We are soon going to be launching, and we've announced this already, a Luxembourg-based UCITS fund, CCAV fund, that is therefore going to open that up. Investors from, I believe it's 20 additional countries are now going to be able to purchase and utilize those tokens because it's in the next wrapper. It's same product, just a different product wrapper. And we will soon be at a point where we can have anyone in the globe able to purchase the money market fund that aligns to what they need to subscribe to from their regulatory jurisdiction.
Wow. I want to explore that a bit because I've been thinking a lot about these things. In the traditional sense, let's say you have a money market fund, it's not accessible to everybody in the world, and there's certain restrictions, and every country almost has its own SEC and so forth. But in a tokenized format, it's 24/7 and opens it up to everybody.
Well, we had to do a lot of engineering to
Okay.
open it up to everybody, right? So we've had to launch all these versions of the fund so that
Mm,
you can get that exposure anywhere in the world. We're working on making, and we have in some instances made that accessible 24/7. We're working on making that a universal set of functionality. But it hasn't existed, so we're having to build it.
yeah.
And when you start working with an entire set of global regulators, things don't always move as quickly as you hope, but they are moving. And our years and years of effort here are really starting to pay off now.
Mm. And how does that change your business management in the sense of the 24/7 aspect? Because while you're sleeping, someone else is trading it, right? Unlike anything we've seen before, because the stock market has an opening and closing, a close
That's
bell.
right.
You have weekends, you have holidays, and so forth. How does this change your business model?
Yeah, well, so this is where we're really fortunate in doing this as a global firm. We already run operations. We have a follow the sun model. So there is always an operations team available from our broad Franklin Templeton franchise. So This is where we're able to use the innovation of our digital asset unit and begin to really leverage off of the really expansive capabilities that we've built as a $1.6 trillion asset manager.
Hmm. Now, going back to the FOBXX, that's the on-chain U.S. government money market fund. It's on base. What's the current AUM? And also tell us about the USDC stablecoin, being able to use that as an on and off ramp.
Yeah, so we're just at about, I think the last time I saw we were about 450 million AUM
Hmm.
in our tokenized FOBXX product. And we have built this exchange, this cash exchange facility within our Benji stack. So if you had stable coins, if you had USDC, you had another stablecoin that you wanted to exchange and get that swept into our Benji product, we have that facility built in. Now, there is a tiny leg of custody that happens in the middle of that transaction, and we work with a digital custodian to make that happen. But it's seconds, right? It feels to you as the end user that it's happening seamlessly. If you really look at the mechanics of how it's happening, the stablecoin is being redeemed, the cash is being reinvested, and it's being put into the money market fund. But that happens in such a short window that it feels like a seamless transaction.
Oh, for sure. Now, Sandy, the stablecoin wars are happening. There's so many
My
issuers
goodness, yes.
now. Yeah. Like Ripple's going to launch RLUSD. PayPal has PYUSD. Of course, Tether, the world's largest stablecoin issuer. And then I was talking to the folks at Agora, Vanek, and they launch AUSD. Are you planning to open up support for all these other stablecoins, or are you going to be kind of selective like USDC and maybe some of the others?
Yeah, well, the facility we built can take any digital asset, including a crypto asset, right? So, the it really is going to come down to a matter of demand, right? When we start to see demand emerge to move from a stable coin into our tokenized money market fund, we'll activate that, we'll get the right arrangements set up, and we'll be able to do that. So we built a coin agnostic exchange facility, and I think that's what's going to really be helping us in being able to be just like we're doing across blockchains, we don't want to have only one or two preferred stablecoin providers. We think that stablecoins are going to explode and that many organizations are going to issue them. So we want to be interoperable with all of that.
Wow, I love that. I love that you guys are chain agnostic, asset agnostic. That's really incredible. Um, Tell us a bit about the institutions who are using your tokenization platform. I'm sure folks want to know who's doing this, looking to tokenize and so forth.
Yeah, so there's a whole mix of folks, and it's really interesting, right? So we've got a number of venture capital funds that have basically portfolio companies that need to fund over time, right? So they don't release all that funding in one go to their portfolio companies. They release that in stages. And so they're managing that pool of capital and the managing the distribution of funds of that capital to their portfolio company. So that's one type of institution. Similarly, we're starting to see interest from treasuries, right? Corporate treasuries, institutional treasuries, crypto treasuries, where they might have multiple jurisdictional legal entities that they need to move cash between. We're seeing that emerge as a really interesting use case as well. We're really starting to see interest from many hedge funds and interest, from many trading counterparties who want yield from, the overnight reserves they're holding or want yield from the collateral they're posting. Right, this is another big use case that we've been seeing, and people who are doing lending are looking for opportunities to have a collateral backing that also pays yield rather than just holding a stable coin that doesn't pay any yield. So you're starting to see a bunch of different use cases emerging that all really represent new ways of engaging in business that provide real edges in terms of either cutting time to get payments distributed, cutting costs, making it more efficient from a collateral perspective, bringing in some of the real positive things from traditional finance into the new crypto ecosystem in terms of being able to apply yield on collateral. So these are all, I think, great use cases that we've been really uncovering and working with our clients on.
And as we head into 2025, do you expect these activities to increase, that more firms will come into place? And this may, I don't know if this question makes sense. With the push towards tokenization, is there any middlemen being cut out here? Is there any disruption of any entities who may have been part of the whole system before?
Well, I think that, let me answer that in two ways. I think that 2024 has been a real year of building for us because, as you mentioned, we've been expanding across multiple geographies. So we've needed to work with many sets of regulators. We've been launching new products. We've been building out across many chains, right? So we've been really spending a bulk of our 2024 getting the base in place for what we expect to be a very, very active and 2025, where we really see utilization of all these capabilities surge. And so I think that, we've been really prepping and getting everything in place for this now not to be a novelty off to the side, but to become a core business of what we do. I think at the same time, there's many intermediaries that see potential issues with this new set of rails threatening their core business model. And, the more innovative and creative of those entities have been very engaged in thinking about how can they too evolve with the evolving ecosystem. And so I think there will be a set of them that are able to, adapt their business model, become really successful in the new world. But there's probably also going to be a set that wait too long or don't act fast or don't act creatively enough or fast enough, and they may find that their business model is under threat. So, as this whole kind of new set of engagement and trading and collateral opportunities open up, right? I think that you're going to really start to see who are the winners and who are the losers.
It's fascinating to watch that play out. I'm big into history and I study technology and I've watched disruption happen through the internet, the growth of the internet. It's fascinating. I think the same thing's happening here, of course, with blockchain. Um,
History major myself, Tony. History
yeah.
major myself.
Um, yeah, I know because there's a good and a bad to that, because you see companies go out of business, but that's just the nature of the business cycle and technology and the history of how we progress as humans, civilization. So it's interesting.
It's almost you have to have that as the threat because otherwise, there's not that incentive to innovate, right? So you need that incentive to innovate.
That's true. Let's talk about the ETFs. So Franklin Templeton, of course, has a Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. What we've seen though, overall, for all the ETFs out there, incredible inflows. I mean, Sandy, I'm blown away. And I'm like,
Oh.
where this thing is going really fast. It's really rapid. And I know like collectively, all the ETFs are going to surpass Satoshi if they haven't already. What are your thoughts on the success of the ETFs?
Well, I think it's just showing that there's huge demand to be able to participate in these new marketplaces. And, because it's been such a different way of obtaining exposure, a lot of people who don't have confidence in their ability to use these new technologies have had a hunger to invest, but haven't really understood or gotten themselves comfortable with investing in the options that had been available. And now that this is in a familiar ETF wrapper, I can go into it via my brokerage account. I can put in an order for it. I can ask my advisor to buy it for me, right? I think that this is really showing how much untapped demand there has been. And I still think we're really just at the very, very beginning stages of it. Right. And I think that we have, I hate to say this with the success that we've already had, but I can honestly say I don't think you've seen anything yet, right? Like this is really probably going to be just the beginning. And I think it's going to really progress very quickly and become an absolutely standard part of everyone's portfolio. Probably within 5 years, we'll kind of look back and say, wow, was it ever controversial that you held crypto in your portfolio? When was that? Right. I do think we're moving towards that day. And I think these ETFs are really helping pave the way for that because it's allowing the public at large who don't feel comfortable getting into crypto technologies to participate, right? There's a lot of people my age and older that like never quite got super comfortable with social media, yet we still participate in the online world. This is the way I think that you're seeing a broader and broader part of the population really be brought into the innovation that's happening in the crypto ecosystem.
Yeah, well put. And I know a lot of people are intimidated by private keys and storage of that. And if I lose it, I lose my crypto. So ETFs put all those worries to bed and it just makes it easy.
Exactly. Yep.
What do you think is driving the appetite for this asset class? And one of the things I keep thinking about is like what Paul Tudor Jones said, I think back in 2020, where he said Bitcoin and crypto is the fastest horse in the race. Yes, you can invest in real estate and the stock market, but nothing moves like crypto. And maybe it's the global reach, the hard cap supply on many of these tokens, and that it is, we've seen tech eat a lot of industries and suck them in. So maybe Bitcoin and Ethereum and so forth, because of tokenization and all these things, is sucking in the traditional assets on top of it. I don't know. Do you think it's a combination of all these things?
I think it's all those things, and I think honestly, there's a growing frustration, particularly here, I think, in the U.S. and in many of the big developed nations, about the opportunities that are available in the traditional markets, right? If you look in the US, we have seen the number of publicly listed companies contract by almost 75% since the 1990s, right? There's simply not as many public companies out there. A lot of that growth opportunity has moved into the private equity markets, and most individuals are excluded from the private equity markets. And so, where is the small cap stock that you could buy 25 years ago and own until it became a mega cap and make a fortune owning that security? There's not as many of those opportunities out there for today's investors, particularly young investors that don't have a lot of money to invest. And so
Right.
I think that these crypto tokens and this new crypto ecosystem, it's almost like a 21st century investment option. And I think that we've seen the world change so much. There's many, I think, who have a sentiment of, I don't see as many opportunities in the equity markets. And I kind of think of that as like the baby boomers investments. And I want an investment that feels more in tune with the world where it's heading today and where it's going. So I think that there's also this appetite for something that, again, democratizes and brings a broader set of the population into this ability to really invest money and potentially get rich. And, I think that that's kind of, I think, what Paul Tudor Jones got to in that statement. But I think it's more foundational than that. It's about this democratization and it's about kind of taking back, I think, some of this potential that has gone to the institutions and to the ultra wealthy and has kind of moved away in many instances from the average individual.
I think you hit the nail on the head there because it's also in line with the sentiment that many people are feeling about I can't afford a home. It's the American dream that seems so far from me. I don't care about bonds, and the bonds have not performed that well. Gold, like you said, it seems like a boomer asset. And then the stock
Yeah.
market, well, yeah, I get some Tesla, I get a bit of a Nvidia, whatever it may be. There's not that broader appeal in like the smaller companies where it seems affordable, but I can put it a fraction into Ethereum or Bitcoin or some other altcoin and do better based on
And I can do it myself, right? So I think there's a
yeah.
real appeal in that too, is that I'm not being forced to go and open these accounts and talk to these intermediaries and right. I mean, I think that people are so independent in today's world and so enabled by technology, and I feel like these investments really fit with the life that people live today.
Yeah, and I'll give an anecdotal evidence from my personal experience. I think before the internet, I would not have understand investing. There was no trading view where I can go look at charts and understand what's happening and even get financial data. Yeah, I can go to the Fed's website, see the M2 money supply. I can see a lot of things now. And it's available to everybody. So we have more education to your point. I can watch someone like you, Sandy, on YouTube, where before I could, or listen to you
I'm
on
thinking
Apple.
crypto. That's right.
Yeah. Oh, because I couldn't get access to you before. There was gatekeepers, right? And I couldn't walk into Franklin Temple and say, "Hey, I want to spend an hour with Sandy and have her teach me about these things." So it's a very different world.
It's a different world, and I think that, it's a world where people want to feel like they have knowledge and control and an ability to take a hand and shape their own fate. And I think that's what this new ecosystem is really well suited to do. It's capturing, I think, a populism in how you act and how you behave that's just not available in a lot of aspects of people's lives.
Hmm. Um, I want to ask you about the crypto index ETF. So you guys filed for that Bitcoin and Ethereum. I think the SEC pushed it back to January. We know there's a regime change taking place. We got Paula Atkins coming in, who we know has been pro crypto new government coming in. Do you expect that ETF to get approved and other altcoin ETFs to get approved next year?
Yeah, well, so I'm not allowed to speak directly about anything we have a filing on, but let me make the case for why I think a multi-coin ETF is so important. We have seen, so, just because we're creating this exciting new world doesn't mean we have to throw out all the lessons that we have learned through
Right.
100, 200 years of financial history. And I think one of the most important things we've learned is you don't want single asset exposure,
Yeah.
right? You don't go and you're not having, a NVIDIA ETF, you have QQQ,
Right.
right? So you want this diversification that comes by spreading your investment across multiple assets. And the registration that we're looking to get, it would start out with Ethereum and Bitcoin, but it would be an index product that would grow based on the market capitalization of the underlying token, so that you get as the ecosystem itself gets diversified, your exposure gets diversified. And that's the flexibility that I think we're going to start to see. There's always a lot of enthusiasm when someone says, "Oh, I'm filing for this ETF or that ETF," but they've all been single asset ETFs, and we still feel like the need is to go towards diversified portfolio exposure. It's safer for the investor. It's better in the long run from performance perspective. It gives you more protection against unexpected news or problems. So, that's our thinking there is we want to take our learnings by being one of the most successful traditional financial market asset managers and bring that into this new ecosystem by starting to create this. And we have been running model portfolios for over 3 years, multi-coin portfolios. In fact, our first multi-coin portfolio just passed its 3-year anniversary, and the average return has been over 65%. So that's a pretty good return when you're talking a multi-coin portfolio. So we want to be able to really think about bringing that expertise into the ETF wrapper over time.
And do you anticipate that once there's more clarity, you may add other coins in the top 10, like your XRP, Solanas, and so forth?
Exactly.
Hmm. Um, it's interesting. I agree with the your thoughts on the index ETF because I'm thinking about not myself because I'm fully in crypto, but the average Joe and Jane, yeah, just give me the top five or the top 10, right?
Exactly.
Makes it
Yeah.
easy.
Just let me have exposure. I don't really know much about it. I don't want to have to pick. Just let me have what is a good exposure, right?
Mm. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I think that will help usher in a lot more investors that they don't have to pick or choose. Just, hey, just give me exposure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I would love to get your thoughts on if you're able to talk about it, but like the upcoming government, and could we see crypto legislation push through the Senate? Like when we mentioned earlier, Paul Atkins coming in at the
Yeah.
SEC. You got a Treasury Secretary who's going to be pro crypto and so forth.
Yeah, I think, look, it's been 100% signaled. So, if we take the signals at their face value, which I think we should, right, that this is going to be a very pro-crypto administration in the US. And, how quickly they can act, well, we see how quickly bills get passed in Congress. So, I think some of our enthusiasm has to be tempered by the sausage making, as they call it. But I think that the intent is there, and I think that, there will be a lot of openness to the right messages, right? Like when we talk about the opportunities for individuals, the ability to provide more, democratized access, the ability to do this in a way and help regulators understand that, tracking assets on blockchain is actually more effective than the way that they've been tracking traditional securities, right? So a lot of arguments that people have been making that are very true and very important arguments that have had trouble breaking through, I think will now have a much warmer reception. And that will help, I think, open up a lot of doors. And I think you'll see rapid progress. And, once the US starts moving quickly, the rest of the world will accelerate as well because no one wants to lose the edge that they've been trying to build while the US has been slow. So it feels like we're just really getting ready for takeoff. That's kind of what I think the sentiment feels right now. And, it may take a few more months than people think it's going to take, but I see it as a very positive direction. And I think 2025 will be remembered as the year of crypto, to be honest with you.
Wow. Yeah, well put. And I think even just the end of regulation by enforcement in that fear environment, even if
Yeah,
they, like you said, Congress doesn't even get to push the bill through, just the end of that and a more, even if they're neutral, like we're not trying to kill you or
right.
stop you, right? We're just gonna okay, come in and talk to us. Let's get things going. It may move slower because of government, but just that environment will be so much better.
Yeah, and I think it's also it's the underlying message, right? When it was enforcement by, regulation by enforcement, the message was you're doing something bad and we're going to catch you. And now I'm hoping and I think that we will see the message turn into we're excited about what you're doing. Let's do it in a responsible way.
Hmm. Yeah, 2025. I'm excited. It's gonna be
Yeah.
really fascinating to watch it unfold. Because it's so funny. You see President-elect Trump constantly talking about crypto now, and I think just this morning he was at the New York Stock Exchange. I don't remember. I think he was ringing the bell, and then he was asked by Jim Cramer by crypto, and it's amazing. Like I said, if you told me this a year ago in 2023, I would not have believed you.
Oh yeah. Never underestimate how bizarre reality can become, Tony.
Yeah. You mentioned something, and it's something I've been talking to people about. If the government was running on blockchain, how much more efficient it could be and accountability. Where's our funds going? Where's the spending? Putting voting system in with blockchain in place. Do you think we'll eventually get there? I know it probably won't happen anytime soon, but maybe in 10 years we see all this stuff running on blockchain.
100%. I mean, just take voting as the simplest thing of all. Like everybody is so freaked out that there's going to be all this fraud in voting and who's a registered voter and who's not and who's a legal voter and who's not. Just voting alone. Could you imagine if the voting records were on blockchain? It would become completely clear. You're either registered or you're not, right? And I think that, or you think about your tax returns and how many pieces of paper really have to get printed out to file a tax return. These are things that I think just beg for improved efficiency. So, I do think that you will see all of that start to happen over the coming years.
That would be so great to have to have
Yeah.
that done. I think regardless of what political party you stand on, I think people agree we want our government to work better for us. We want more transparency. We don't want money getting lost, and we don't want all these things. Maybe this will event these problems will be legacy problems, and we'll have better
Well, and
future.
innovation isn't innovation isn't limited to a political party, right? Innovation is about the entire populace being able to benefit. And so, I think that you've got to kind of separate how you feel about, what's happening from a political standpoint from understanding that, there are times when new technologies come in and change everything, and we're entering one of those times now.
Mm. Sandy, amazing. Always great insights. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited for the future updates around Franklin Templeton. We'll have to have you back on next year because you guys are doing a lot of great things. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was a great conversation. I really enjoyed being on the show.